All right, team. Happy Sunday evening. Yeah, this is one that I had to do over the weekend. Not necessarily up my normal alley, but something that a lot of people have been asking me about Bitcoin. For years, people have been asking me about Bitcoin. And like most people, I said, well, I don't really understand what it does, so I can't get behind it. I don't understand what it does. And what's become evident recently is that doesn't even actually matter. And so what I'll explain to you today, this will be anyone asks me about Bitcoin ever again, I'm going to send them this link because this is what I think is happening, what I think is going to happen. And I think you might agree that it's a pretty logical conclusion based on what's taking place. I have some links I'm going to show you that I will share with you in the post just to show you some references, some things that are going on. And then also my opinion. This is just my opinion, and I could totally be wrong. Could totally be wrong about this, but I think you'll see that it makes a lot of sense. All right, disclaimers out of the way. I do home loans for a living. VA Home Loan Specialist, NMLS 155010. Call or text me, email me if you have questions about the VA home loan benefit. Okay, that is out of the way. Now, one of the things that's important to understanding Bitcoin is that it doesn't really matter what it does. A lot of the people who geek out on blockchain and stuff like that will tell you, oh, well, Bitcoin's antiquated. It's like a rotary phone. There's better cryptocurrencies. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter what Bitcoin does. Most people don't understand it. What matters is what it represents. And I started to really understand this when I first started learning about art, traveling to Europe, looking at art. What's the difference between a great painting and a great piece of art? A good story. A good story about how the king had this commission and then it was stolen by this guy when they stole it and then come back. It's all about a story. The story of Bitcoin is what you need to understand. The story will fail. It's not going to work. That's why I'm telling you Bitcoin will fail. And Bitcoin itself probably will fail. The whole thing will. But that's a long ways off. And between now and then, there's going to be a run-up in this thing like nobody's ever seen. Bitcoin, I think, will be worth one Bitcoin. I think will be worth millions of dollars in our lifetime. And there's a couple of really big reasons why that's the case. So why do I think it will fail? Well, the story is, and the reason why we need to know this is because if you are going to get into this, you need to know what to look for to tell you when the story is over. Because when the story is over, it's done. When the story falls apart, it's done. The story is that Bitcoin will allow you to get away from the government, to get away from the banks, to not have to deal with anything that has to do with government, to not be able to be regulated, to not have your information tracked. We're just going to get away from the system, and we're going to just do it all together with this Bitcoin. And it's a great story. Screw the man, screw taxes, screw this and that. Forget the government, forget the banks. It's a good story. Even if you didn't buy that story, you would be smart enough to realize that a lot of people will. And that's why people want to get behind stuff like this. Now, there's all sorts of cryptocurrencies out there. I'm just going to talk about Bitcoin because that's the one that's marketed the most. And when I say marketed the most, I mean talked about on national TV every single day, over and over and over. If you were trying to market Bitcoin, it would cost you billions of dollars to get that kind of exposure. Billions. And these other coins just don't have that kind of exposure. And that is a very, very important piece of this puzzle. So ultimately, that will fail. 100% for sure, guaranteed. And I'll tell you, one of the main reasons why it will fail ultimately is because when the rubber meets the road, when tough days come, and there will be many tough days along the road, most people don't understand what they own. And so it'll be easy for people to make bad decisions to get out of it. And ultimately, it will not overtake the governments. Remember, it's not really a currency. It's really more like a stock, I guess. It's just code. It's ones and zeros. Bitcoin is just computer code. That's what it is. So it's not really a currency. It trades more like a stock, almost like a commodity. And so the idea that this could somehow one day actually be the currency that people use is nuts. It's nuts to think that. There's absolutely no way. It's too volatile. People can't take that. Do you know how many people in this world work at a job where they make an okay salary when they know they could do better, but because of the safety of knowing how much is coming in? People would not be able to stand to see what's in their wallet, be worth $100 when they go to sleep and be worth $50 when they wake up. People wouldn't be able to handle that. So there's absolutely no way that's going to happen. Also, the political elite and the governments will be able to kill this thing whenever they want to. And so if I'm wrong about my theory and the reason why I'm buying Bitcoin, if I'm wrong about that, at any point in time, this thing can be killed and driven straight to zero. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, especially not in the near term. But it could be at any time. How easy would it be? I mean, remember what Janet Yellen said? What did she say? I have this up here. I'm going to show you. She said, and this is Bitcoin returns. I'll show you all this stuff. So Yellen comes out and says that she sounds warning about extremely inefficient Bitcoin. Extremely inefficient. Huh. When she said inefficient, what she actually meant was volatile. If you look at what she talked about, she said that the price had gone up and down a lot, which really should mean extremely volatile, although they quoted her saying extremely inefficient. It's funny because this was just a couple days before the Federal Reserve wires shut down for a couple hours, and we had loans that we were told may not fund. So that's pretty funny. But she said this, that basically that it's extremely volatile, which is something that's a fact. We all know that. There's nothing new about that. We've all known that for a long time. So she told us something about Bitcoin that we already knew, and it got hammered. I mean, it was down at least 10%. I think it was almost down 15% that day. Just off of that. Just off of just breathing that, just one person just saying something. We all also know, if you're a Bitcoin investor, be honest with yourself about this. If you were doing something very, very illegal, if you were a drug cartel or a human trafficking organization or something terrible, you would probably use Bitcoin because it's untraceable. So at any point in time, the government can come in and the global government elitists can come in and they can say, hey guys, we've noticed that Bitcoin is being used for all these illegal purposes. Therefore, we're going to regulate it, or we're going to sniff it out. We're going to kill it, whatever. At some point, they will be able to say that, and everyone will have to agree because we all know it's true. Now, they may say these things, and I think when Yellen spoke, that was a test. They may say these things to drive the price down so that Wall Street can get in, and that's where I'm going to get to why I'm buying it. So those are the reasons why ultimately the story of Bitcoin will fail. It will not work out the way that it's told and the way that it is spread. Even the people who are spreading it, the reason you know this is to be true, even the people who are spreading the really, really bullish Bitcoiners, they will tell you how well it's doing in American dollars. So they'll tweet, Bitcoin just hit $50,000. And what they don't realize when they're doing that is that they're basically saying that the story is already dead. Because if you can only determine the value of Bitcoin based on dollars, if people only understand it that way, then the whole purpose of Bitcoin taking over is moot. Not possible. You're telling me at some point later you're going to come up with a new way to evaluate it that everyone will understand? That's not going to work. So just the fact that people are talking about it in that fashion tells you that the story can't come true about Bitcoin. But here's what's going to happen. And this is, I think, a foregone conclusion. I'm going to show you a few articles. I'm going to show you a few data points here if you're interested in this stuff. I know that I'll be interviewing people about Bitcoin and we'll be talking about it for a long time. But the main reason why I'm buying it, and I'm buying it just through Coinbase, I make a weekly purchase, which I've increased fourfold in recent history, is not because Tesla bought some. It's not because Michael Saylor's in there buying tons of it, who's a hedge fund manager who owns now billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Tesla owns $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. The main reason is because Wall Street hasn't gotten the green light to get into Bitcoin yet, to promote Bitcoin, and they are getting it. Okay? So they're in the process of getting the green light for Bitcoin. So what happens right now is you hear about these crazy returns on Bitcoin, and I'm going to show you these returns. In fact, let's go and let's look at some of these. And just imagine Wall Street with these kinds of numbers. And when I say Wall Street, I really mean brokerages, right? Like, the fact that there isn't a Bitcoin ETF, iShares, Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, all those things are going to exist. Every single company is going to have Bitcoin on the balance sheet. There will be tons of cryptocurrency funds with Bitcoin as the main holding. Cryptocurrencies are going to get purchased by Wall Street. What that really means is they're going to be purchased by you and your mom and your grandma and their 401ks and stuff like that. Right now, if you go to one of these major firms and you ask about Bitcoin, they're turning people away from it. They're saying it's too risky. We don't understand it. It's just computer code. It's a crazy thing. They're pushing people away from it because they don't have the green light. They don't have the product yet. And if you look up Bitcoin ETFs, you'll find that there's only a few. There's companies who either deal in blockchain technology, or there's some companies who do buy some Bitcoin. There's no pure Wall Street play for Bitcoin, which means that people who don't understand how to get a Coinbase wallet or buy something, cryptocurrency is very difficult to purchase right now. It is about to become a lot easier. And not only is it about to become a lot easier, but it's also going to become something that Wall Street is pushing, and they will have the press behind them. And I think they will knock it down first. This is why I don't suggest you go and buy a bunch of Bitcoin right now, and don't buy Bitcoin with any money that you're afraid to lose. Because, like I said, if I'm wrong, they could pull the plug anytime. It does not look like that's what's happening, though. So there's Bitcoin futures. There's application in for Bitcoin futures that appears that it's going to be finalized. I don't know. This may have been finalized since this happened a couple weeks ago. I have not seen that yet. But there is regulatory approval to list Bitcoin future contracts on the CME, and CBOE. So the door has now been pulled wide open for the ETFs based on these futures. And these futures, they're going to be buying and holding tremendous amounts of Bitcoin. Not only that, but all these ETFs that will be coming out, instead of turning people away from Bitcoin, these big brokerage firms will be pulling people into Bitcoin. Someone comes in and says, "Hey, how can I buy a Bitcoin?" Or you have people who want to get into Bitcoin. They'll search it. They'll search Bitcoin ETFs. They'll be hearing about it all the time. They'll finally have a place where they can put it that feels safe because it's not in a crypto wallet. It's in their IRA. This hasn't even begun yet. So this is something that is in the process of starting in the late stages of 2020. This was approved. This has not happened yet, as far as I know. And so this was, so this is released on, oh no, that's something else. Never mind. So will this happen or not? We don't know. This doesn't exist yet, but it looks like, the SEC was not, has a lot of reservations about this. And from what I can tell, and there's a bunch, this article here, this one is called Bitcoin Journal, bitcoinmarketjournal.com. That particular article, if you want to read a whole bunch of stuff on this and they compare it to other things, and based on that, here's what's going to happen. So this is something that is worth looking into. Also, MicroStrategy CEO, Michael Saylor, this guy has been buying so much Bitcoin with his fund. He owns billions of dollars worth of it. He says that Bitcoin will one day have $100 trillion market. If he's right about that, then that means each Bitcoin will be worth $5 million. That's the math on that. And he's a very smart guy. He's putting a tremendous amount of money into this. Also, a lot of people saw Elon Musk purchase Bitcoin for Tesla. Now, why would these guys be doing this? They're buying at really what seems like a high price compared to what it's been lately. Well, these guys are a little bit more connected than you and I. And they're aware of what's happening and that this is going to roll out into Wall Street. And when Wall Street gets a hold of this thing, believe me, everyone that you know will own Bitcoin somehow, some way. Right now, it's not that simple to buy it. It's actually complicated to go sign up for Binance or even Coinbase. It's you have to do this whole process. It's difficult and people don't understand it. If you can go into your IRA and just say, I want to buy that 4-letter symbol, that will make it a hell of a lot easier. And then when you also have the marketing arm of Wall Street, the big brokerages, and here's the reason why it's going to work. And we just skimmed over this. These are the numbers for Bitcoin. Going back to the last 7 years. The returns on Bitcoin in the last 7 years. Look at these numbers. Now you tell me, if you're Wall Street, you're telling me you don't want some of that action? Last 7 years, it's up almost 8,000%. Show me a mutual fund you have that's pulling those kind of numbers. Last 5 years, 12,000%. What have you got? Having these numbers to be able to sit down and show to investors is the easiest sale in the history of mankind. They aren't going to stop until literally everyone owns as much Bitcoin as they can stomach. They're going to run the price up so high that everyone's going to be in on this thing. This is my opinion. Okay, I could be wrong. But Wall Street hasn't got a hold of this yet. Wall Street hasn't made all this money yet. Can I tell you a story? I pre-approved a gentleman this week who makes like $80,000 a year. Not bad. Has over $8 million in Bitcoin in his Bitcoin wallet. You think that doesn't piss Wall Street off? That an average working man was smart enough to buy Bitcoin at the right time and he's now got millions and millions of dollars? Wall Street wants all that money. And they're coming for it. And they're going to bring everyone into this. They're going to run it up so high that everyone's going to be in on this thing. Everybody. It could take a decade for this to happen. It could take 3 or 4 years. The carpet pull, when they crash it, that is going to be epic. That is going to be up there in the depression level. I mean, it is going to be horrible. The tulip crisis, it's going to be up that high when they crash it eventually. But this thing is going to go way, way higher. There's going to be tons and tons of money that flows into Bitcoin. And the catalyst is going to be these brokerage firms. Fidelity, Charles Schwab, you name it, TD Ameritrade, Merrill Lynch. All these companies are going to create their own iShares, Vanguard. They're all going to create their own cryptocurrency ETFs and cryptocurrency funds and cryptocurrency mutual funds. And all these funds are going to raise tons and tons of money from you, me, our parents and our grandparents. They're going to raise tons of money from these people and they're going to go buy Bitcoin. And they're going to buy a ton of it. Absolute ton of it. So if you want to buy Bitcoin, what's the thing to do? Well, I definitely wouldn't just go put it all in there right now. I would definitely, what I'm doing is I'm entering in over the course of a year. So I take the amount that I want to invest into it and I'm buying it weekly. You can set up automatic purchases on the Coinbase app, setting up weekly to just make that purchase so I don't have to look at it. I know over the course of the next year, you're going to see a lot more of this stuff come through. And I guarantee you that it's going to happen because Wall Street has so much money to make. As soon as they have permission from the government, which I think they'll get with the current administration, as soon as they have that, they will go crazy with this. And I think it's going to be one of those things where everyone's going to look back and go, man, you mean even when it got to 50,000, we still had this much further to go? Yes, because it is still difficult to purchase, even with those returns that I just showed you. Even with these returns, think about how many people are not in. Okay, last year, Bitcoin, 525% is the return on investment. 525%. You made 5 times your money in the last year if you owned Bitcoin a year ago. 5 times. If you've owned it for 2 years, you made 11 times your money, almost 12 times your money. If you bought it at a really bad time 3 years ago, you have 45 times your money. See where I'm going with this? 4.5 times your money. See where I'm going with this? This is crazy numbers. Wall Street wants in on it. There's enough data here for this to be a great sales point. And the thing is, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once they start pushing it, the amount of money that's going to flow into Bitcoin is going to make these numbers even crazier. And it's going to continue for a long period of time, and it'll be something that everyone has to have a piece of. Everyone's going to have to be in on this somehow, some way, whether it's through one of these ETFs, through one of these mutual funds, or through the futures. Everyone's going to want to be in on it. So it doesn't matter what it does. What matters is the story of the art of Bitcoin and who's marketing it, who's pumping it. I mean, you can pull up, how many stories about Bitcoin that are on CNBC every single day and all the other business news networks. This would take billions of dollars in marketing money to get the word out like this. That's why it doesn't matter if there's a better coin out there. It doesn't matter. There isn't one that's more promoted than Bitcoin. So my official opinion for everyone who's asking is Bitcoin will go much, much higher. Much, much higher than it is right now. And I think there's no question about that. Or if I'm wrong, it'll just get killed and go to zero. That's why you can't spend important money on this. But if I'm right, it's going to run up like crazy, and then it'll get killed. But you'll know, if you're the type of person who doesn't early adopt and doesn't dive into things like this, and 5 or 6 years from now, you see it hit $1 million a coin, and then you finally want to buy in. If you're that person and that happens to you, call me right before you buy, because I will want to get out. You're the person they want in there last. Once you're in, that's when the thing comes down. So you let me know when you're ready to buy at that point, so that I know when to get out, because that'll be the time to get out. When your parents who aren't very good with technology say, honey, we finally bought the Bitcoin today, that'll be your clue that it's about 6 months before the crash. So just do this. Be careful. Understand that you're probably not going to understand what the hell this thing is. Note that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you understand it. All you have to understand is supply and demand. And Wall Street is for sure about to take this thing over. And they're going to go gangbusters with it. They're going to take those numbers that we just saw, that we just looked at, and they're going to put these into a sales pitch that no one will be able to resist. Can you believe how many gains you've missed out on just in this last year of Bitcoin? 500%? It's outperforming everything. You think Wall Street doesn't want to have their hands in the best performing asset that exists? And it's only regulatory bodies that have gotten in the way. Once they're on board, this thing is downhill and fast. So look for them to start spreading more rumors and having more people say things negative about it. Big people in banks, people in the government, saying how wretched this cryptocurrency is and how it's going to destroy people's lives and spreading fear. They need to clear the way so that you will panic sell your Bitcoin to the Wall Streeters who are going to be coming in and getting in on it. They want to make sure where they begin, they're able to push it. And each one of those firms is going to try to get in at the lowest price possible. Of course, always do. Because each individual fund will have different returns. It won't just be exactly what Bitcoin is at first. And so there will be a lot of negative news about it. I expect that stuff to start coming this year for sure. You see, I feel like what Janet Yellen said was just a little tester, a little teaser. And there's people out there who are dropping negative stuff about crypto all the time. But you're going to see more of that. And that is a sign to buy, not a sign to sell. That is a sign that the plan, my theory, is in motion. And if that happens, and Wall Street does grab a hold of this thing, it is going to be off to the races. So if anyone finds a Bitcoin ETF, send it over. I know they tested one in Canada, or one was released in Canada, and it went absolutely nuts. And there will be some people who would buy a Canadian ETF that has something to do with Bitcoin. And it's kind of a pure play. It's like the only thing to get. So it went absolutely crazy. And I promise you, Wall Street is watching. They know. And there's no way they're going to let this type of money-making opportunity slip through their fingers. So I am betting not on Bitcoin. I am betting on Wall Street's greed. That's it. They won't let this go by. And that's the reason why I think, why I'm buying Bitcoin, even though I think it will ultimately fail. So there's my complicated explanation with a few links to hopefully help back it up. And if you can get in before Wall Street is able to go crazy with it, then I think you'll see some really good returns in Bitcoin. Even though it seems like it's high right now, that's why I like scaling into it. I think it goes way, way, way higher before they kill it. All right, guys, I'm going to bed. So have a great night and have a great week. I'll see you soon.